Almost everyone has heard these four words. Be water, my friend. They've appeared on posters, t-shirts, social media captions, and even business seminars. For decades, people have repeated the quote as a simple message about staying calm or going with the flow. But that's only part of the story. Because when Bruce Lee said those words in 1971, he wasn't giving a motivational slogan. He was describing a philosophy that had been shaping his life for years. A philosophy born from struggle, failure, adaptation, and the courage to reject limits. To understand what Bruce Lee really meant, we have to go back to where those famous words were first spoken. Black and white television, Hong Kong. 1971, Bruce Lee sits across from journalist Pierre Berton. The interview is relaxed. There are no choreographed fight scenes. No dramatic music, just conversation. Then Berton asks Bruce Lee a simple question. Can you tell me what it means to be yourself? Bruce Lee smiles, pauses, and gives an answer that would outlive him by decades. Welcome to LeeVerse. Today we're revisiting one of the most quoted moments in Bruce Lee's life. Not to mythologize it, but to understand it in context. We'll look at where the phrase came from, what Bruce Lee was responding to, and why many people reduce it to a feel-good quote when it was actually part of a much broader philosophy. Let's begin. The famous quote didn't appear out of nowhere. It wasn't written for a movie. It wasn't created for a speech. It reflected ideas Bruce Lee had been developing for years. Long before he became an international film star, Bruce Lee was asking difficult questions. Why should martial artists follow rigid systems? Why do people cling to labels? Why do we resist change? As he trained, taught, and studied philosophy, he became increasingly interested in one idea: adaptation. Not imitation, not blind tradition, adaptation. That idea eventually influenced everything, from his martial arts to the way he viewed life itself. When people share the phrase, "Be water, my friend," they often quote only those four words. But Bruce Lee said much more. In the interview, he explained that water can be poured into a cup, a bottle, or a teapot. It takes the shape of its surroundings, yet it never stops being water. He then pointed out something important. Water can flow gently, or it can crash with tremendous force. The point wasn't that people should always be soft. The point was that true strength comes from knowing when to adapt and when to act. That's a much richer idea than simply stay calm. It's tempting to think Bruce Lee was only describing fighting. But his own writings suggest something broader. Throughout his notes and interviews, he often emphasized self-expression over imitation. He encouraged people to avoid becoming trapped by rigid identities, to keep learning, to stay curious, to respond to life rather than forcing every situation into a fixed pattern. In other words, be water wasn't just a fighting principle. It was a way of approaching change itself. Over time, Famous quotes tend to become shorter, simpler, easier to share. That's exactly what happened here. Today, "Be water" is often presented as a slogan about staying relaxed or positive. Those ideas aren't necessarily wrong, but they're incomplete. Bruce Lee wasn't encouraging passivity. He was describing flexibility, awareness, resilience, and purposeful action. And that distinction changes everything. But here's the question. If Bruce Lee believed so deeply in adaptation, why did he spend so much of his life challenging traditions that everyone else accepted? The answer takes us beyond a single quote and into the philosophy that shaped his entire legacy to be continued.